Hi Math 1. This video is going to go over task 3.2 with you, which is identifying domain and range from a graph. So let's take a look at these two roller coasters. Okay, what do you notice about them? Let's take a look at the height. Okay, how tall are these roller coasters? Like, what's the highest this roller coaster gets? So the Little Dipper, if you notice over here, okay, the highest that it gets is 50. The highest that it gets is 50, and then it goes all the way down to the ground. Okay, so right here, here is the height. It goes from 0 all the way up to 50 at its tallest. Okay, so the Little Dipper, I'm going to write this down right here. The Little Dipper gets 50 feet high. It gets 50 feet high. How about the giant drop? How high does that get? It definitely ends down on the ground, okay? I can see it started at 90 and goes down and up, but what's the highest? And what's the lowest? So the lowest is 0, okay, and the highest for the giant drop is 100. Okay, so the giant drop gets 100 feet high. Gets 100 feet high. All right, but now we have to think about how are we going to write this mathematically? Okay, I want to tell people that the Little Dipper goes from 0 on the ground at the lowest and up to 50 at the highest. So I want to write that as an interval. Okay, so what's the height there? It goes from 0, comma, all the way up to 50. Okay, and that's feet. How about the giant drop? Okay, what's the lowest all the way up to the highest? The lowest is 0, and the highest is 100. So from 0 to 100, and we're going to look right here for units and say feet. Okay, from the low to the high, okay, we call this the range. The range from the low up to the high, that's the range of the graph. All right, now let's take a look at time. How much time does this Little Dipper roller coaster run for? Okay, so it starts, and then the roller coaster ride goes all the way, and it ends, right there at 15. Okay, and we're going to use this unit seconds. Wow, that roller coaster only lasts 15 seconds? Let's write that down. The Little Dipper lasts 15 seconds. It's just a dipper. How about the giant drop? How long does that roller coaster last? This is a bigger roller coaster. So it starts and the ride goes all the way until 24 seconds. So let's write that down. The giant drop lasts 24 seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and write these in interval notation. Okay, so the Little Dipper starts at 0 seconds and goes all the way until 15 seconds. How about the giant drop? The giant drop starts at 0 and lasts for 24 seconds. So when you're looking at the x-axis, okay, for how long something lasts, this is called the domain. The domain looks at the x-axis, and the range looks at the y-axis. You look at the range of values, okay, from low to high, or you look at how long it lasts along the x-axis. All right, let's write down some notes. this little graph right here. The domain is the set of x values. The x values used by the function, okay, from left to right. So if I come over here, sometimes people like to build walls. They like to build walls on the x-axis just to kind of get these numbers. Okay, so not only for the pieces that are increasing or constant or decreasing, it's all of the values. It's kind of like the last lesson that we did, except it's all of them. Okay, so sometimes people like to build these vertical walls. The domain of this graph starts at -3 and goes all the way until 4. Okay, how long does it last? Now if we look at range, range, are the y values. The y values used by the function from bottom to top. So if you go to build some I guess, boundaries, okay, it's going to be like a floor and a ceiling. So the low up to the high, from the low up to the high. Okay, so how low does this one go? It goes from 1 brackets all the way up to, this looks like 4.5 with brackets. Okay, so you have your floor and your ceiling, and that's for range. Okay, so here's where you look for range. And when you're doing domain, okay, this is where you look down here, domain. Domain looks left and right. Let's identify the domain and the range, okay? And we'll have to interpret. So remember, interpret, okay? Interpret means the two words from the story. Okay, so kind of like yesterday, okay, when you do domain, we're going to be looking along the time, but not only increasing, we're going to look at all the whole time, okay? And so the walls for domain are going to go like this, okay? You build those walls, those boundaries. So I notice that this graph starts here, okay? That x value is 0, and it goes all the way, wow, to here. Okay, all the way to 19 minutes. Let's make sure we put some units on this. Okay, so the temperature starts at -1. The temperature goes up, then it stays the same. Oh, then it gets higher. Then the temperature drops. Then the temperature goes higher, and then the temperature drops. Okay, and it does that pattern for 19 minutes. 19 minutes. So let's interpret that. Okay, we have to use two words. We're going to have to say the temperature, and then we're going to have to say minutes. Okay, since we're doing domain, we're just going to say minutes. So the temperature changes. The temperature changes for how many minutes? 19 minutes. How about the range? How about from the low up to the high? How about the low up to the high? So the lowest is -1. From -1 all the way up to the high. Oh, this one's the highest. The highest is 8. From -1 up to 8, okay, and that's degrees Celsius. Degrees Celsius. So let's interpret, okay? So from -1 to 8, what is that? What is that negative? That's the temperature. So the temperature goes from -1 all the way up to 8 degrees Celsius. So not only do you say the interval, but then you use the words from the story to explain your answer. Oh, can a graph be curvy? Sure, the pitch of a singer's voice. Okay, so this is someone's voice in seconds. The voice goes up, the voice goes down, the voice goes up, really high and down. This is the pitch of a person's voice. Okay, in terms of domain, we're going to look at the left all the way to the right. Okay, so we're going to start right here. This starts at 0 and goes all the way for how long? All the way for 19 seconds. So from 0 to 19 seconds. Okay, make sure we put the unit for that. The range is the low up to the high. The low up to the high. Okay, so what's the lowest this person's voice gets? I think this is the lowest one right here. This point right here. So the lowest is 10, brackets 10. And then what's the highest? The highest the voice gets is 140. From 10 up to 140, and we're going to say kilohertz. Okay, make sure you put a unit. That's the range of the voice. Okay, so the graph could be curvy, okay, or it could be linear, or it could be a combination of things, right? Domain from the left to the right. Let's build the walls. This graph is a little more interesting. The walls go from the negative all the way to the positive, starting at -9 brackets all the way until 8 with brackets. I can't put a unit because I don't see any words on this graph. The range is the low up to the high, the low to the high. So what's the lowest? From the lowest this graph reaches right there is -5, and then up to the high. What's the highest? The highest point right here is at 6, -5 up to 6, and that's the range. Okay. Some people like to actually use their highlighter, and they highlight from the low, okay, up to the high. That could be done for range. You could build walls if that helps you. Floor and ceiling for range. Domain, if it helps you, you could always highlight and you could build the walls on the left side and the right side. Okay, so if you're doing domain, it's left side, right side. And if you're doing range, it's from the floor to the ceiling or from the low to the high. Okay, last page. I planted a new tree that was 3 feet tall. So you can see the height of the tree here, and the time starts with 0. That's the beginning, the starting value. It's 3 feet tall. Each year it grows by 2 feet. So if you go 1 year over, well, it went from 3 to 5. It got higher by 2. Then the next year, it went from 5 to 7. Okay, each year it grows by 2 feet. Okay, 2 feet. Since this is a straight line, up 2 over 1, that's the slope value. Continue drawing the graph for the next 4 years. Okay, so for the next 4 years, so let's see, that's year 4, so I got to go to year 5, up 2 over 1. That would be year 5, so that's 1 more year. Let's do it again. Okay, that's 2 more years. I'm sorry, that's 1 more, it's 2 years total. That's year 3, and that's year 4. Okay, so I drew it for 4 more years. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, I drew it for 4 more years. All right, now they want us to answer some questions here. The original domain. Okay, so domain is the set of x values. Okay, the set of x values. So it started at 0, and originally it went to 4. Okay, so originally the graph started at 0 and went all the way to 4. Okay, and these were years. But then what about the new domain? after I add it on, okay, the domain does not go 0 to 4. Now the domain goes all the way to 8. Okay, but the domain is all the way from the left to the right. So now you got to look at the whole thing. So we'll start again with 0. Okay, and this graph goes all the way to 8. And that's with years. Okay, that's with years. Domain is down here. That makes sense. Okay, it used to be 0 to 4, now it's 0 to 8. How about the range? Okay, the range is the low to the high. So if I look at the original range, the graph started at 3 feet tall and got all the way to 11 feet tall. Okay, so the original range, if you draw the floor and the ceiling, it started at 3 and went all the way up to 11, and these are feet. These are feet. Okay, but now the new range, I have to go a little higher. Okay, so it still starts as low as 3. Okay, but after I continued it, now it's all the way up there at 19. So the new range goes from 3 up to 19 feet. Okay, a pond starts with 32 gallons of water. Each day, the amount of water decreases by half due to drought. Oh, decreases by half. Decreases by half. If it is half, okay, that means it's exponential. And remember, exponential graphs are going to be curves. Okay, maybe I'll do the original domain and range first and then add mine on. Okay, that's something else you could do. Okay, so before I continue this, let's just do the original domain. The original domain, okay, this graph starts at 0 days and goes all the way to 2 days. Okay, so it starts at 0 and goes for 2 days. That's the original domain. How about the original range? The original range. What's the lowest? The lowest up to the high, from low to high. Remember, start down low. It starts at 8 and goes all the way as high as 32. Okay, and what are these? Oh, these are gallons. These are gallons. Okay, but now let's continue this graph. Let's continue. It says, draw the graph for the next 2 days. Okay, so 32 went down to 16, that's half. 16 went down to 8, that's half. So if I do half, that would take me to 4. Half of 4 would take me to 2. Okay, and that's what they wanted, 2 more days. Here's day 3, here's day 4. Make sure it's curvy. Curvy, curvy. Remember, exponential graphs are curves. Okay, now let's make the new domain. Okay, so now that I extended it, the domain goes from 0 all the way now to 4. 0 to 4. The domain was extended 0 to 4. 0 to 4 days. Okay, how about the range? The range, now that the graph is this low, the range goes as low as 2 and as high as 32. Okay, that's the high. So starting with the low, it's as low as 2 and as high as 32 gallons. Okay, good luck doing domain and range.